with me because let's also break down for our viewers how India stands to gain, at least. Because remember, there's one big breakthrough, which is that the 50% tariff has been now slashed to an 18%. So you're looking at labor-intensive goods industry gaining a lot out of this announcement. It's the garments and apparel that stand to gain. Indian exporters are now going to face a lower 18% duty compared to competitors like Bangladesh and Sri Lanka. Even Vietnam and Indonesia were standing at a higher tariff percentage. And this is going to enhance India's competitiveness in major markets. Kritsvi.
Textiles, for instance, I mean, this was one sector that was suffering major losses in the wake of these high tariffs. So 50% down to 18% is a big gain for the textile sector. India remains a top 3 global exporter of textiles and clothing, is why it was feeling the pinch the way it was. And now we're going to see an increase in the orders for sure, driven by supply chain diversification away from China. Let's not forget the other sectors, leather, gems, jewelry, footwear, all of that also stands to gain.
You know, there's going to be renewed competitiveness for summer season orders, which is expected to get improved in terms of even manufacturing capabilities, our competitive pricing according to the market trends as well. Look at carpets, another very interesting product. Indian carpets are regaining market share, especially when you compare it to, say, Turkey, which is driven by better product quality, design, in addition to cost competitiveness. Let's also talk about marine products. Remember, marine farmers, especially in Andhra Pradesh and Telangana, all of them were, in fact, their sales had come to a screeching halt. Indian shrimp is becoming more affordable and competitive in the US markets. There's particularly high demand when it comes to Indian shrimps and seafood exports.
There's
Pharmaceuticals is, of course, another
continued
sector.
Growth in exports to emerging markets, bolstered by trade agreements. MSME, that's been the big story. It's also been the big story in Union Budget 2026-27. Electronics, eased regulations, incentives, they're going to be boosting export competitiveness for small-scale electronic component manufacturers. And this is also as per trends that have been reported in engineering goods. So all of these, you know, are patterns that are likely to emerge going forward.
You're also expecting relief for exporters in auto components and electrical equipment, with strong growth projected this year itself per data. Now, China factor. This is one factor we really need to actually factor in, because Indian goods are gaining a competitive edge over Chinese products. China, remember, also remains at a higher tariff level, particularly when it comes to textiles and apparel. On that note, I want to quickly bring in Ambassador Dayal, who continues to stay with us, as do the other guests. Ambassador Dayal, you know, this announcement arrived on a day which was very interesting, because the Chinese envoy to India, Ambassador Xu Feihong, had a very interesting message to deliver. They were celebrating the Chinese Spring Festival, and he's reminded India, especially when it came to Prime Minister Modi's meeting with President Xi in Tianjin A. He's also alluded to the historic commonalities that both the countries are sharing, both the countries' common belief in Atmanirbharta, self-reliance, and how both China and India believe in the philosophy of Vasudev Kutumbakam, or world is one. What is your assessment of this message arriving on a day when Prime Minister Modi and the US President had a conversation?
Well, you're right. The timing is very interesting. Everybody had noted the fact that President Trump's statement came less than a week after India and the EU had concluded an enormous trade deal. Then, of course, India was in the process of resetting its ties with China. And you referred to the visit of the Chinese envoy and the message that he conveyed about the historic China-India ties. The important point is that the message went across to Washington that India was not coming under pressure. President Trump had put enormous pressure on India, but India had found ways to escape that pressure, to lessen the pressure, and was recalibrating its ties with a whole host of nations. Now, let me come back to the trade deal briefly. A previous speaker said that it really doesn't amount to all that much, the concessions that he's making, but they do, because as you pointed out, there are a number of labor-intensive sectors where our exports had come down. And this was a cause of enormous worry. Now, with the easing of tariffs and their reduction from 50% to 18%, our exports of these labor-intensive industries will go up. Also, the fact that we
But
have
so
a
will the
competitive
competitiveness, Ambassador Dayal, isn't it? Is that going to be challenging for India, and to what extent do you think?
Well, what will be challenging?
I'm saying it's also going to give a rise to competitiveness. So we're going to see increased US products in India, and there's obviously going to be a little bit of a criticality attached to that entire story going forward then.
Of course, there will be an increase in the arrival of Indian products, American products in India, but then the bilateral relationship should flourish. We have always emphasized that. Let me also just state one very important fact. Trade is just one aspect of the bilateral relationship. The relationship is multifaceted, and we are now trying to strengthen our strong strategic partnership. And the trade deal tensions were coming in the way. So let the tensions ease and let the overall partnership grow. That is what
Absolutely. And we are yet to expect a formal deal right now. Much of it is still in the realm of speculation. But many thanks to all our guests for joining in on this discussion.